So I've been doing a lot of breakdowns about martial arts styles, but this video is a little bit different. This video is about one of my favorite techniques, and it's one that's rarely seen. So definitely watch the whole video, because at the end of the video, I'm going to show my application of it, which I've personally never seen before. So it's a good little trick for everyone who's watching, including experienced martial artists. But in the meantime, I've been trying to grow this channel. I appreciate all the views, but please like, subscribe, and share, and ring the bell notification thing and the other 45,000 things that people do to grow YouTube channels. I'll greatly appreciate it, and it means a lot.
Pow, pow. Inside fighting, yeah. Dangerous martial arts. Pow, pow. Ooh, ah.
All right, so there's a lot of techniques in martial arts that people claim are the best techniques. Now, I have no belief that there is one singular best technique. I believe that there's lots of techniques that are very, very effective, but as martial arts continue to grow and as martial arts continue to become more competitive and people are looking for new things that they haven't seen before, it's very, very hard nowadays in the martial arts world to say, well, that's something that I haven't really seen applied or I haven't really seen put into competition. Now, the technique I'm talking about is not one I would personally use in a self-defense situation. This is strictly a sparring, and I'd even be careful with it in sparring, but I'd maybe place it. But it's a very good technique for placing it in sparring and for application in a martial arts competition, whether that's mixed martial arts, whether that's kickboxing, some kind of striking environment. So I'm just going to go over some of my past favorite techniques. I'm a big kicker. I believe kicking, the reason I like to kick is because I like to stay very tight on top. I've talked about this before. I'm a very tight fighter on top. Whether that's the rhino for my self-defense training, I call it the rhino because I'm really hugging my head, I'm trying to protect my motor, or whether that's just staying balled up with gloves and really, really covering my head and my temples and my chin. The reason I like to fight like that is because anytime you punch, even if I hide behind my shoulder, and a lot of people punch with their shoulder low, I always punch with it very high. I kind of hide behind my shoulder. The reason I do that if I am going to punch is because anytime you extend your arm away from your body, you are open to getting hit yourself. And if you look at a lot of the knockouts that happen, they happen in an exchange, or they happen when someone is extending their arms. It's very rare you see someone balled up tight and moving and seeing what's going on, and they still get knocked out. It can happen. I'm not saying it can't, but it's less likely. The number one knockouts are when people's arms are out or not by their chin. Now, the reason that's relevant is because it's kind of like a rule of the universe. The universe created fighting in a way that's very unique. When I get into a striking exchange with you, if I want to punch you, I open myself up to being punched back. There's a beauty in that, right? To hurt you, I have to open myself up to getting hurt back. I always felt like kicking and elbowing also is kind of the loophole to that. Why? Because when I elbow you, I'm actually also protecting my head. The problem with elbows is I have to get close. And when it comes to self-defense, I believe that that's the way to do it. I elbow because elbowing does not expose me. If anything, it protects me further. But when it comes to sparring, I don't want to just constantly drive in on people with elbows. And so I developed a very strong kicking game where I might jab, I might still strike, but my strikes are usually setups for my kicks, and my kicks are the main thing I'm using, and I try and stay tight. I used to love, and I still love, the question mark kick. A question mark kick is when your knee comes up straight, your knee comes up straight like you're going to do a front kick, and then you turn it over into a roundhouse kick. Everyone drops their hands on that. But the more I was doing that, I've been doing question mark kicks for years, and it's a very, very popular kick in Kyokushin. The more I did that, the more people started anticipating it. So I looked for a new kick. And the kick that I find is the most underutilized kick in all of MMA, in all of sport fighting, and is one of the most effective kicks, is something called an uchi mawashigeri. Now, excuse my accent. I know it's terrible, but what it pretty much means is inside roundhouse kick. Now, this won't make sense to a lot of people. A roundhouse kick, by definition, comes from the outside. It comes from the outside and it hits hard. Now, what makes an uchi mawashigeri very unique is that it's coming around from the inside and then whipping up and hitting upward. And a lot of people say, well, you can't generate force with that. So I'm going to show a few videos here of people actually getting hit with an uchi mawashigeri. You don't see it in MMA. You see it in Kyokushin tournaments. You see it in some other striking tournaments. But you rarely see that kick used in any other environment. And you can see that people just drop. Now, the number one thing I've realized when it comes to a knockout or shutting off someone's lights is not the amount of force behind the kick or the punch or the hit. You look at Anderson Silva, some of his strikes just look like they were tapping people on the chin, especially when he was fighting Forrest Griffin. That was something that always stuck with me. He was moving back and he just kind of put out his hand, and then Forrest Griffin just dropped to the ground and had a broken jaw. And I started analyzing what are the main things that result in a knockout. And one of the main things that results in a knockout is placement, which this area of your body requires very, very little impact. Your chin requires very, very little impact to knock you out. It's much different than getting hit in the top of the head. So when it's catching you right on the bottom of the chin, typically you see people get knocked out much faster, which is why uppercuts tend to knock people out, or even these kind of weird, like underhanded hits. The other thing is the strike you don't see is the one that tends to shut off your lights. So those are the two things that really made me realize what do I look for in a strike? I look for the strike that will have easy and effective placement on your chin, which is something like an uppercut tends to hit there. And I look for the strike that you won't see coming, which means that I have to be a little bit more advanced in my striking and set these things up. So the Uchimuashigeri, because of the angle it comes on, is almost impossible to predict, especially when you set it up repeatedly with low kicks. The reason is because it's two contrasting motions. Your body becomes conditioned to seeing the roundhouse kick to your leg. It's what we train all the time. And now, even in MMA, more so because of all the calf kicks, it's become like a staple of the sport to kick people in the calves. And so when people anticipate that, anytime a strike comes on this side of your body, you do not anticipate getting hit on the other side of your body. Anytime a strike is coming low, it's very rare you anticipate coming high. And an Uchimuashigeri gives you both of those. It might not generate the same power as a roundhouse kick, but it doesn't matter because it lands on your chin just by nature of how it's done. It's an upward angle strike, and you don't see it. So that's my favorite kick. I think it's one of the most underutilized kicks. I think you'll start seeing it more in the future. I still think that a lot of these striking styles in MMA are developing more and more and more. And then one person does something, and then everyone starts trying to do it. Like after Conor McGregor shoulder punched Cerrone, everyone started trying to shoulder punch and realized, okay, that was a one-time kind of thing, and then they dropped it. Okay, so I'm going to cut here, and I'm going to show you my personal setup for the Uchimuashigeri and how to really use it in your sparring. Again, please be careful with this one because of how it lands. It does tend to cause damage. You have to be very careful in your placement. And anytime I'm kicking people, I do believe in being nice with placement. It's actually something that I've had an issue with sometimes when I'm sparring with people because I'm very good at placing high kicks on people. And I might just tap you with it or might just put it there so you see it. And a lot of people start getting defensive and then they throw a hard head kick back and it just escalates. It's one of my biggest pet peeves because once you've kind of embarrassed someone, I guess that's what they believe in their head by placing like 3 or 4 kicks by their head. They believe they have to catch one back at you and most people aren't as trained in it and they throw a hard one. So when doing this, just be aware, be nice about it, and then let the person know, hey, this isn't a head kick challenge because getting kicked in the head is not fun and it results in brain damage. And I'm not for that on this channel. Okay. All right, so I'm here with Eli. And Eli, again, is much taller than me, so most people would say this kick does not work on someone taller. You do need flexibility for it to work. But because of the middle step I'm going to show you, don't necessarily have to go to the last step. The last step is very good for the knockout. The middle step will also be a good setup to hurting the guy. So the first thing you have to do when you want to set up an Uchimuashigeri, in my opinion, is set up the reaction to the roundhouse kick. The low roundhouse kick is where it all comes from. And so I always believed if I have 2 to 3 things I can hit somebody with, whether that's a hook to a roundhouse kick, and then a hook to a hook, and then a hook to this roundhouse kick, or whatever it is, I just have a little bit of variety here for him, that it's enough to get someone guessing. It's when I repeat the same thing over and over that people develop habits. In other words, if I catch him with a roundhouse kick once and I just throw it blind like that without a setup, he's gonna start after 2 times, typically is what you see. I hit him once, bam, I hit him twice, bam, time number 3, he's gonna check, bam, okay? So I'm expecting that. I'm trying to feed repetition to him when we're fighting so that he starts reacting to what I'm doing. And that'll happen with, again, anything. If I go jab, hook, jab, hook, jab, hook, it's not gonna keep landing. So, and that might be a setup to jab, he thinks I'm gonna hook, and then I come for an uppercut. So that's how I spar typically. My dog's trying to come in the shot. Come over here, Ella. You're a good dog. Okay, now get up. Go, mama. What I do is I set up my roundhouse 1,
Then I go again. Then on the third time, I'm stepping out like I'm gonna throw the roundhouse. I open the leg up and I slide it into a front kick, okay? So, 1, 2, I step out like I'm gonna do the roundhouse. I feed it low, but in front of his kick, and then I front kick, because he is going to lift that leg. Even if he doesn't, I still have it. If he doesn't react, if he just stays planted, and I go, boom. Okay, so even if I don't want to do the push, right, boom. If I don't want to hurt him with a push, if I want to actually damage him, what I'll do is I'll treat it like a snap. I'll come here and then boom, like that. And I don't want to do this on you, but I lift up my toe and I snap it. Oof. So this is a push, and it moves him back. This is a snap. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up the chamber to snap.
That still hurts.
It hurts, it's like a little whip. And it's more like a strike to hurt the guy. So that's option number 2 if you can't reach his face. In other words, you go 1, he's too tall for, I'm not flexible enough, I can only get to here, so I won't do it. And what I would tell you to do is go here, snap. Okay, so that's the middle ground. So I've set you up now. 1, 2, and number 3 is the Uchi Mawashigiri, and I'll just turn his hands here. These are slippery. So I come here, boom, and I hit him with it.
Wow.
And you won't see it. Again, because he's still either expecting this now. Now the nice thing, when I set up the middle kick as a secondary reaction, what is his reaction when I go to do it again? Drop his hands. So first reaction I'm setting up, react to the leg. Second reaction, react to the front kick. Drops his hands. I don't go to the front kick. I go to Uchi Mawashigiri here, boom, up. So I come in, boom, and I land it. And it's very, very, very effective. And I can still do it from distance because I've set up this front kick first. So that's my intermediary step that I haven't seen someone do. And I think it's very effective. Here, boom. All right, thank you for watching.